Well, hey YouTube, it's Petey Two Finger, and I'm here to talk about the guitar instrumental set. We picked these songs and put them together in case we would be performing for people or making music for people, because these are songs that I did not write. People do not like to hear music that they haven't heard before. Now, these are, I would say they're oldies. I gotta really watch what I say because someone is next to me that likes to correct everything that I say. I put this set together because they're oldies and they're songs that are guitar instrumentals that people might know. So if we find ourselves in a situation where we're gonna perform in front of people, like I think it was November of 2022 was when I put this together, and we performed this for my mother-in-law, my wife's mom, who I would say she is a tough cookie, and she enjoyed it. She really liked it. She really liked it. So I thought, well, instead of just throwing it away, let's try to get this on film. So we went out last weekend and we filmed ourselves playing these songs. The performances are they're not really that good performances. I mean, honestly, I do a lot better when I'm in my element, and going out to do a remote in the middle of the wilderness when there's people walking by demanding eye contact and stuff. It's I could make excuses all day, but the reality of it is I'm just not that good of a guitar player, you know. So you heard it here first. Now, I did write some stuff down, interesting fun facts about these pieces of music and the people who recorded and performed them. So I want to read that stuff to you guys. I suppose I should talk a bit about, some of the stuff that I picked it ended up getting thrown in the garbage. Like Wipeout was a song that was originally on the list, and one of us couldn't play it, so it got thrown away. There was another piece of music that we were doing called Lara's Theme, which is from a movie called Dr. Zhivago. That got thrown away because I couldn't find a backing track that I really liked. I made two backing tracks for that song, and one of them had a real lot of synth to it, and it was cool. It sounded really kind of more like a MIDI or karaoke backing track, and it was cool for what it was, but it had too much of that vibe to it where it just screamed backing track. And that really wasn't what I was going for, because one of the things that I discovered at the same time back in November of 2022 when I put this set together, something called Moises, Moises, Moises was advertised to me, and I looked at it, and what they were saying was you can upload it, a song, an MP3, a WAV, whatever format song, and then this is AI, and you can tell the AI, well, take this piece of music, and in return, just give me back just the drums, or strip off the electric guitar and the bass, because see, I play electric guitar and my wife plays bass. So then we can take that track minus the electric guitar track and minus the bass part, and we can supply that and play over it. So this would give us the opportunity to play along with the original tracks on some of this stuff, which sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. I paid for the service. It was like $3.95 for a month, $4. It was cheap. And some of the recordings worked really well, others not so well. So it turned into a thing of having to hunt down backing tracks that the software liked. So it wasn't as easy as I would have liked it to be. It was actually an unbelievably time consuming pain in the neck to put this together. And that's why, kind of why we're still playing it. I really wanted to get it on tape. We went out last weekend. The weather was nice, and I mean, you might not notice as much as me the mistakes in there because I know how I can play these songs when I play them right. I know how good I can play them, and I didn't play them as good as I could. It's just they're loaded with mistakes simply because it was the first remote of the year. There was a lot of people walking by. There was a guy who came up talking to us. Anyway, that's the story on the guitar instrumental set, other than I should say, some of these songs like Rumble, my wife told me we were started playing that in 2014 or 2015, we'll say to be safe. Well, let's just say a week ago was the first time we played Rumble. So then I'd get off the hook with her. But several of these songs go back a ways. They predate the guitar instrumental set. And whenever I do that and do covers, it's like something I do in spite of myself, like I really don't want to do it. You have to kind of step away for a minute and imagine what it would be like if you reached under a lawnmower and chopped the tops of your fingers off on your hand and then tried to play guitar with just your pinky and your index finger to fret. Okay, would you be able to play and jukebox and just play Jimmy Page, play Eddie Van Halen, or would you be really limited in what you could play? So the idea of me being a guitar player and then trying to please a crowd is like really a bad idea. This is dumb. Anyway, that's the guitar instrumental set. That's, I like I realize like I'm faking my way. I'm not playing the guitar properly. These are cheater guitar parts I'm playing. They're the basic minimum to scrape by to fool people. Like this, I would be like the third guitar player in the band that they kick out right before they go to the studio. So again, I'm not here saying like, oh, I'm the master of the guitar and I've rewritten these classics and reinterpreted them for the ages. It's nothing like that. Okay, this is an embarrassment. It's really what it is. So that being said, now you understand where I'm coming from. Ghost Riders in the Sky was written in 1948. It was a story which was an Apache legend. It was told to this guy Stan Jones when he was 12 years old about the spirits of the deceased living in the sky, chasing the cattle, the devil's herd. The melody is based on When Johnny Comes Marching Home Again. Now, Stan Jones and his Death Valley Rangers were the first people. He wrote it, I guess. He was like a TV star guy, like a TV cowboy maybe. This song was covered by a band called The Shadows, who we're going to talk about The Shadows a few times they come up. The Ramrods version added the shouting and whip cracks, which the version that we have had, that's what I was looking for. Something with decent sounding drums, and I got to have the whip cracks and the shouting. 1949. It was uh, a notable version by a guy named Vaughn Monroe, who I've never heard of. Now, the next song is Rebel Rouser. That was 1958. It was a guy named Dwayne Eddy and his Rockabillys. It features electric click bass, which is, I think that's nylon string bass. And I think there's a piezo pickup in the bridge for that. Or is it a magnetic pickup? Is there a hexagonal steel core in those nylon strings? I don't know. I played a bass with the nylon strings on it. A guy named John Wilson, I believe his name was doing music at this camp, Strawberry Lake, up in like Canada or Minnesota up north. And he was an old Nashville guy that was a Christian. That was this Bible retreat that my mom took me to in 1988. It was a week-long thing. And I went in there. They had instruments up on the stage. And right away I went up and just turned the bass amp on and started playing the bass. And this guy came out like, "What are you doing?" But he was actually smiling, John. He was cool. But I was like, what's with these strings? And he was like, "Oh, that's an old Nashville thing." But and I learned I put together. There was other guys that were there, a guitar player, a drummer, and a singer, and we put together some music and performed. And it was like Beatlemania. There was screaming teenage girls at this. It was like a huge auditorium, like a lot of people, and these girls like went completely nuts. I've never performed anything like that. It was cool. It was cool. I just didn't know how to take it. You know, it was a little like, oh, like I was like, whoa, like looking down. You know, I wasn't able to deal with that. Kind of came out of left field. But yeah, 1958, Dwayne Eddy had the electric click bass. A group called the Sharps. They did Papa Uma Mau. Those are the guys that were doing the shouts. You can hear them yelling even on the recording that we use as the backing track. They're like, "Play that mother," and they're all like yelling out. Now, there's a movie called Sandlot, and also Forrest Gump used, I think in that Run Forrest Run scene is the song Rebel Rouser, which originally was called Rabble Rouser. They changed it to Rebel Rouser. Now there's a black and white video with they're on a forklift that it fully extends, and they drive them around like a gymnasium or some type of auditorium, and it's crammed full of people, and like they're lip syncing. There's a drummer. They've got Confederate hats and like suit jackets on, like Confederate uniforms. And there's a guy with a snare drum, and like there's a sax guy, and then like they don't have any amps or anything, and they just play it through the PA and drive them around on this fully extended forklift, and they're huddled together on the top of a pallet. It's a bizarre video, really entertaining though, and that's Dwayne Eddy, Rebel Rouser. You should check that out on YouTube now. He had a 100-watt, which is really loud for back then. It was a magnetone amplifier. Now, Dwayne used to use an empty water tank for reverb, which is really cool. Dwayne Eddy and his twangy guitars, that's what they called it. Now, the song changes key. It modulates 3 times. It starts out in E and it ends up in G. And that was in the studio. They couldn't figure out, like basically he just came up with it. Like he had a little success, but like if he didn't do something on that day, it was gonna be curtains for Dwayne Eddy. And he came up with that lick and he played it, and they couldn't figure out anything to add to it, so he just kept modulating it, kept going up in key. And that's the whole song. Now, Dick Clark, he was doing a sock hop, and he had a station wagon where he would load up his big speakers and his turntable, and then his milk crates full of records. Well, he forgot one milk crate of the latest hits at home. So he gets to the sock hop and he's like, oh man, I don't have enough records. So halfway through the night, he says to the kids, hey, listen, kids, I forgot my records. So we can either play the same songs over again or we can check out some of these B-sides. And they voted for B-sides. And he played Rebel Rouser, which was the Dwayne Eddy B-side, and they went nuts. So that's Dick Clark made that video and got him more exposure and helped to make Dwayne Eddy into a significant career. So thanks to his forgetfulness, now Tequila was also recorded in 1958 by a group called the Champs. And Dwayne Eddy covered it. This song is often played by high school marching band at football games, and it's in the movie The Sandlot. Now, Tequila in my version of it, there's Mexicans enthusiastically yelling and shouting, and that's called a grito. A grito. And if you look that up, it's something that they do. They have grito competitions, and it's something that they do that goes back, I think, to maybe when they kicked the French out of Mexico, like Cinco de Mayo. Like they were like like doing that, I guess, when the French were retreating. I don't know, but that's what I read about it. And I went out, I got the backing track, and then I put together the grito to on just those certain parts. But it's me saying tequila. That's me saying tequila. My mother-in-law, when we played that song for her, she said, "Is that you?" I said, "No, it's the Mexican guy." Oh, she was laughing about that. So yeah, 1959, Santo and Johnny made this song called "Sleepwalk," and it's their Uncle Mike on the drums. They were using a steel guitar, which was part of the Hawaiian music craze that was popularized after World War II. The Shadows covered Sleepwalk, and Sleepwalk inspired Peter Green and Fleetwood Mac to write a song called Albatross, which is also on the set list, which inspired John Lennon and the Beatles to do a song called Sun King. Now, that thing with World War II, that people had money to travel, they were buying motorcycles and guitars, steel guitars, ukuleles. There was this whole South Pacific craze. It was a vacation destination, so that music became real popular as well, and it really influenced a lot of culture, American culture. So Rumble, it was banned in several U.S. markets and in Britain. And it's one of the only, I think it's the only instrumental song that's banned. It's an instrumental, but they were like, you can't play that. Those kids they're gonna fight. They're gonna rumble. It's gonna be like West Side Story, with the snapping fingers and pulling a switchblade out. Rumble is slang for a gang fight. And they made it up at a gig. They were at a sock hop, and somebody was requesting the Stroll. Now, the drummer was the only one who had heard the Stroll, so he started playing the drums. And Link Ray just ow, 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 just did that, and the place, it kicked off. They made them play it 4 times in a row at that sock hop. So they made it up on the spot. Link, he just played a D and an E. The kids went nuts. They played it 4 times and they named it Oddball. Now he tore holes in his speaker to get distortion in the studio. Apache is this song by a guy named Hank Marvin. He had an echo and vibrato unit. It was an Italian tape echo. He also had the first Stratocaster in Britain. It was a red Strat that his manager brought over from America. See, after World War II, Britain really had lost out because Germany bombed the snot out of them. So they didn't have any manufacturing, and they decreed it. You weren't allowed to import anything. Everything you bought, you had to be made in England. So you couldn't buy a Strat, even if you wanted to. So this guy, Hank Marvin's manager, snuck one into the country. And on the album, he's holding it on the album cover. And everyone went nuts. What is that thing? This was a red Stratocaster, and that's a famous Strat. Somebody's got it. I heard the story. It was like these two musicians were drinking, and the one guy got it out. Here, let me show you this. And then he passed out, and the other guy took it. Said, "You gave it to me." Really a bad deal. I forget who those guys are who have that guitar and that story, but that's the first red Strat. Now, Apache was 1954, and there's a bunch of versions of Apache. There's one where it's like almost like the Village People. It's like some New York City disco guys, and they're like, "Get on it" or something. They're like, I don't know, they're like Tonto or singing something. It's like kind of like hip hop. And then there's another version with the Shadows where it's like pew pew pew. It's all disco, and he's got like Porsche glasses on. It's bad. It's not good. Jerry London was the guy. He saw this movie called Apache, and he wrote it on a ukulele and played it for the Shadows, and they recorded it and had a hit with it. I believe it was maybe 1960, but yeah, or was it 54? 54, Jerry London saw the movie Apache, and 60 they had the hit. But there was a local television show here in Chicago called Wild Chicago, where they would go around to different places and film unusual places. And I'm on that television show. Me and my little brother and my daughter, I can't say her name because my wife won't let me. But my daughter and me and my little brother Bjorn, we were all on Wild Chicago when they went to R2, his workplace. So their theme song for Wild Chicago was Apache, and that's the first time I ever heard it, was watching Channel 11 WTTW here in Wild Chicago. Now, the James Bond theme is actually called 007 Takes the Lector. James Barney arranged it, and Monty Norman wrote it. It's 1963, From Russia with Love. So I guess the movie that came before that is Casino Royale, maybe? Or is it Dr. No? It's Dr. No. Didn't have that Bond theme in it. But those guys, John Barry, is it, and Monty Norman, they had a court battle. They both claimed, like, I wrote it. No, you only arranged it. Like, they had a big court battle. The guitar part was inspired by something called Good Sign, Bad Sign, and the guitar player was Vic Flick. He played a British-made hollow body. Remember I was telling you about that embargo? You couldn't buy a Strat? It was like a Higsby and Skews. It was some kind of guitar I never heard of. It was a British hollow body, and he had a Fender Vibrolux amp. And he played that James Bond. And there's 70 cover versions of that. Now, Green Onions is 1962, Booker T and the MGs. Those guys are the Blues Brothers band. It's Donald Duck Dunn and Steve the Colonel Cropper, who is a Telecaster guy, plays the Telecaster style guitar. Actually has a PV custom. It's a Telecaster style, but so they wrote it at the studio. Booker T. The guy who, I forgot his name, Jimmy James, Lenny, Squiggy, something. He was a singer. Was supposed to come and cut some hit, and he didn't. The singer, that guy, didn't show up. So the guy in the control room, I forget what you call him, the producer, is like, why don't you guys, you got any songs? And Steve is like, hey, what was that thing you were playing like 2 weeks ago? And they did it. And then the producer was like, do what you were doing in the middle, in the beginning, then let him take a solo, and do another verse, then you take a solo. So he arranged it real quick, and they put it out. And everybody really responded well to it, so he had a copy of it. And he was friends with this DJ. He used to hang out with the DJ at the station while the guy was spinning. And the DJ's spinning, and he's like, here, check this out. So he puts it on, and the song ended that was broadcasting, and he put it on, put Green Onions on the air. Steve was like, what are you doing? We don't even have a name for that yet. And the phones just went nuts. Everybody was calling, what is that? We need to buy that. So they had to like call an emergency meeting and bring everybody in, like, we've got a hit. What do we call it? And the bass player said, you should call that Onions, because that's the stinkiest song I ever heard. And Steve Cropper was like, no, not Onions. Green Onions. That's good. People like Green Onions. Let's call it that. So that's the story behind Green Onions. Albatross was 1968. Band called Fleetwood Mac. It's not the one you think of. Not Fleetwood Mac with the girls singing. This is before they were in the band. This is in England. It's a guy named Peter Green, who's a guitar virtuoso guy. Played a gold top Les Paul. He played Stratocaster. I think on this song, I think he played it on a Strat. It was, part of it is a slowed down Eric Clapton solo. It's played on a Strat. It was inspired by Santo and Johnny's Sleepwalk. And it inspired John Lennon to make Sun King. Now, and what a beautiful song. What a beautiful song. I made a series of videos called Acid Casualties about rock stars who went nuts in the 60s. And Peter Green was one of the guys that I did an episode on, and his son, Peter Green, he passed away a couple of years ago, but he has a son named Liam Freeledge. And I dedicated that song to this guy because he contacted me after watching my episode. He was learning more about his father, and there's some stuff that doesn't add up about that story. People are not telling the truth, and that's his thing, is he's on a quest to find out the truth about what happened to his father, and he would like to have a documentary made about it, because it's a really interesting story. So that's Liam Freeledge. That's the guy that I dedicated that song to. You can check out his channel. He's been doing YouTube. He interviewed Reiner Langholm or whatever, who was the guy who was, what's her name? Now I'm not going to be able to remember. This girl, she dated Jimi Hendrix, Keith Richards, Mick Jagger, all of them. She was a real beautiful, like, super groupie. And Reiner was her boyfriend. And they were there at this German castle where Peter Green was dosed with something. It might have been like STP-DOM. It might have been just a mega dose of LSD, but he never recovered from that. So there's conspiracy about that. The High Fish Commune. There was a book somebody wrote about it. Uschi Obermeier. That's the girl's name. Now, the final piece of music that's on the guitar instrumental set is a piece of music that's called Because We Ended as Lovers. Now, this was a song that Stevie Wonder wrote and his wife sang it. Now, Stevie Wonder had made a deal with Jeff Beck. He was going to give him a song. So Jeff Beck shows up at the studio where Stevie Wonder is, and Stevie Wonder's like, I'm going to give you a song called Superstitious. And the record guys, they were like, no, you're not. So he ended up giving him Because We've Ended as Lovers, which Jeff Beck recorded on an album called Blow by Blow, which he later went on to call that album A Series of Mistakes. Which is it's funny to me because when you listen to how beautiful Jeff Beck's playing is on it and how terrible mine is, and then he said that about it, it's like really, really puts you in your place. But Jeff Beck dedicated that song to a guy named Roy Buchanan. Now, Roy is the best guitar player you never heard of. Was an hour and a half long public access television special they made for him. He died under kind of shady circumstances. It was like some people think that the cops beat him to death, but the cops claim he hung himself in a jail cell. And he had, I hate to say this, the guy's not with us anymore, but I think he had demons. Like he had I think he had like an anger, like alcohol, gambling. Like I don't know much about his personal history except like he came up in the church with the religious thing, and like he struggled with his mental health. But if you don't know who Roy Buchanan is, man, you guys are catching up to him. He's an unbelievable guitar player. He does a lot of tricks. He's a stunt guitar player, and man, is he good. He is really something to see, Roy Buchanan. And like I said, that piece, Because We've Ended as Lovers, Jeff dedicated that to that cat. So that's it. That's the guitar instrumental set. I wanted to do some yakking and lip flapping. Thank you. And there's 3 original songs that we played on the day that we went and did the remote and filmed the guitar instrumental set. We did 3 instrumental pieces of music. One is something I heard in my head when I was coming home from church when I was 4 years old. And I've used it a few times. This is the 3rd time I've used that. It's just a scale, and but I really like how the piece came out. The other thing is a sea shanty. It's got that sea shanty feel, seasick. And I really like that piece. I really like that. I'm playing this stuff on the number 4 position on the Strat, so it's got that quacky spanky thing going on. And man, it just really love these tones. And then in a Vox amp model. And then there's a high gain, like a traditional wound up guitar sound that that's called Parumpa Pum Pum. It has a Rude Boy intro on it, if you know what that is. And it's just kind of it's a catchy, hopefully it's a catchy instrumental. So yeah, I like the guitar instrumentals are great, but there's 3. I mean, the guitar instrumental set, that's all fine and dandy, but what I'm really excited about is these other 3 instrumentals that I have yet to edit and upload those for you guys. So I'm going to condense the entire thing into one performance video, and then we're probably going to film it again. I'm probably going to film it like we broke it up into songs. We're probably going to film it in one shot, maybe. I don't know. We got to see how it goes. But check out those 607 Parumpa Pum Pum and Down by the Sea. Those are the names of the original songs that I'm stoked about. Because we've been playing this GIS shit since, for a while now. We learned it. We stopped playing it for 6 months. We learned it again now. So we've got about 2 or 3 months of playing it. Anyway, you guys, thank you so much. I will talk to you soon. I look like I got a faux hawk going on here. I got to cut my hair. You guys take care of yourselves. Hug your pets. That's the most important thing. And peace.